Good morning, everybody, and welcome to December. It is time for Wake Up Missoula. We're here to talk about a lot of different things happening in and around the city of Missoula and beyond. We're talking a little bit more about some city council or a deep dive into substance abuse issues in terms of youth and marijuana. So we're going to talk a lot about that during my city council report, and a lot of other things we're going to be talking about. We have a holiday-themed Dubbin Stuff. For those of you who liked me to do voices for characters, even though I don't really try too hard with voices. And we also have First Friday, so we're going to tell your art guide throughout the day as well. And so let's get things started. Wolf season is here and is in effect despite an ongoing lawsuit. According to Missoula Current reported late Tuesday afternoon, Lewis and Clark County Judge Christopher Abbott decided against placing an injunction on Montana's wolf season after hearing oral arguments Monday on whether to stop the season or put it on hold. One of the big things about the last year's season is that people are just too good at hunting wolves, and so a lot of conservation groups argued that the liberalization of wolf hunting and trapping rules passed in the 2021 legislature aren't science-based and interfere with the efforts of national parks and other federal agencies to manage wolves. So far, nearly 70 wolves have been killed this season in Montana out of the 456 wolf allowance. So basically, the wolf season will go on until March 15th of next year, and they have basically tags to go once they reach the quota of 456 wolves. That's when they decide to be like, okay, that's enough. We'll put on the brakes. So we'll see how this season turns out and go from there. And one of the biggest topic items of discussion right now are reintroducing bison into the prairie. And so far, bison have been really on the national parks and been protected at Yellowstone National Park to graze. But a lot of the reservations and tribal leaders want to reintroduce a lot of these 20,000 bison, which would provide excellent examples of how well-managed bison herds can be allowed to fulfill their ecological and cultural roles in these areas as well. So this has been going on for a long time, and they only saw some real footing over the last 10 years environmental impact statement process about the benefits of bison for the lands. So there have been successful bison reintroductions to 65 herds managed by 82 tribes and counting from New York to Alaska throughout the years, including several already in Montana. Bison are very important to the ecology of the prairie lands, and with open range management, many have more successes, and those against it tend to skew towards skepticism. We introduce wolves into the ecosystems, but if we cannot hunt it, it feels like they will hurt us. So far, they are stuck in meetings, and they have been delayed. Maternities, you always have like stakeholders, they're waiting on a lot of stuff. So like I said, this isn't something that just recently came up. This has been an ongoing thing. But plans have already been the CMR Refuge, the Upper Miller River Breaks National Monument, and the UL Bend National Wildlife Refuge is the logical next step for bison reintroduction. One of the big things that are happening in the nation, but also really affects kind of like everywhere and everyone, is the rail strike. So a lot of rail strike was averted just this week through government intervention, and by December 9th, they're going to force a deal down the rail union's throats. Workers are overworked and understaffed and want the companies, plural, to give those workers days off and sick leave if they get sick. That's it. They want what's fair. A lot of times these unions, that's just kind of what they want. Many of them have done interviews asking for the basics, and many mainstream media outlets are talking about the impacts of this strike rather than the impacts of the current situation of the rail strikers that they're living through right now. It's more than that. The workers have no intention of not doing their jobs. They just want what's fair, and when the economy is dependent on trade and transport, it makes it difficult for these workers to leverage anything, since the government does have the ability to intervene on companies' behalf for nearly 100 years. The Guardian reported as of December 9th, deadline looms for the long-running labor dispute between the U.S. largest railway companies and their unions. Biden has called on Congress to intervene and block a strike that could cost the U.S. economy $2 billion a day, that some estimates. And this was based on an estimate made 10 plus years ago, so it could be even more. So any strike, according to our government, would be considered illegal in terms of this whole intervention. So since the businesses let these unions down, and now the government, perhaps the workers should know that the people are behind them. But regardless, I will speak for myself, let them strike. Moving on, folks are getting tired of the bummer that is the Chinese COVID-0 policy, which has unilaterally kept the citizens indoors with a zero COVID policy that the country is locked down at any point and they decide. And so a lot of the things that kind of sparked the movement is that people would actually be gated into their rundown apartments, and if there was a fire, they wouldn't be able to escape just because of these zero COVID things. So Shanghai AP News reports growing unrest and protest of a policy that has citizens go so far as to ask the chairman Xi, the country's leader, to step down. And the cries for resignation of Xi and the end of the Communist Party has ruled China for 73 years could be deemed sedition, which is punishable by prison, and those who are not part of the movements of going against the government will probably be sent to re-education camps. And they always talk about Tiananmen Square and a lot of things during these reports as well. But we'll kind of go over that. We'll kind of skip that because one of the major things that the Chinese government has done over the last 10 years has increased their security budget. And has nothing to do with their military or defense. It has everything to do with their security within their own country, so national security. However, the Chinese government have always had a stronghold on curbing dissent, and this will probably get squashed. But this, and it isn't necessarily like how they dealt with in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong was technically kind of controlled through the Commonwealth until the early 90s, so that was the British rule. And so the Hong Kong had a little bit more of a long era of independence, and then when they were rejoined in the community, there was a big shift in terms of independence and just being able to work with cultural differences between the Chinese that lived in Shanghai versus the Chinese that live in Hong Kong. So there were like the protests in Hong Kong were to many Chinese not surprising, but with Shanghai and many of the major cities and a lot of other these things happening, it's very striking to see a lot of these things moving forward. And people are just kind of getting sick of their zero COVID policy, and they just want to be able to live their lives and not have to have the major oversight of their government. So that's just kind of what they're going through right now. And another thing that I and moving on even more to unilateral decision making through government is the Vladimir Putin up in Russia. And this has to do kind of on the heels of Finland joining NATO. So Finland is a big, major, strategic, valued country living just slightly north, but it's also towards the capital of St. Petersburg in the Baltic Sea, which is basically a major port in which how Russia would get access to the ocean essentially from that side. So they had a major strategic value on that particular thing. And just going into this a little bit more, you can find out more information because I watched this on Real Life Lore, which is the YouTube channel, which actually really goes dives deep into the history of Finland and Russia, which dates all the way back to the Napoleon era, in which they had an unspoken truce between the two countries, saying there's like, okay, just stay neutral. We don't want to conquer you, but we want to stay neutral. And it's just, they have such a large history with Finland. And, it's making a circuit in the news and here and stuff like that. And one of the major things is that them joining NATO would add a strategic value to NATO, in which that's what Vladimir Putin fears the most, is having NATO at their border, in which the NATO would have the ability to have nuclear weapons. So that's as much as I'm going to kind of devolve, because it's a large topic. There's a lot of information going on with this as well, but I'm going to kind of stick with just the cliff notes so far, and you guys can check that out as well. It's a great YouTube channel. It talks about even the history of Ukraine and Russia and everything like that, and how even the Russian culture really started in where the region of Ukraine actually is. So you can see how they're so gung-ho on the territory of Ukraine, because that's basically kind of like the birthplace of the Russian people. So in other news, Qatar, FIFA World Cup has basically went from a human rights violation and World Cup officials admitting to taking bribes to kind of getting on track for the FIFA World Cup. Qatar has been spending billions of dollars. Some would say upwards of $300 billion to build and ready the oil-rich country to get the games. They wanted to show off and bridge the gap between Western world, and boy, they get their wish and then some. So nothing says Western world like complete and utter criticism. Qatar, like many Arab nations, are at their core a theocracy and relies on religion-based laws to put into place basically since the dawn of man, according to most religions. You have religious rule, and that the only checks and balances are the people who claim to have a direct connection to God. Kings, czars, ayatollah are thrown out of history and chosen to lead the people because they are considered special. And when you get a country built on law and order, you have folks who rise through power through various means, which in many cases, a country made of law and order, that anyone can be special. So the appeal for the kind of influence is dropping in a country that for the most of their history has had these kind of rules. So what's my point exactly? Nations will never get along, get over it. But all kidding aside, trade, capitalism, resources force these groups together to have and compete and compromise the mutual benefit for both countries. And when you have a country like Western powers that are so powerful, our influence and sanctions and all that stuff and money goes into a big play in how we influence their culture and how we move forward with them. So it explains how like we have some influence over a lot of the countries, but then it also works both ways, which has a lot to do with how Venezuela ends up affecting our trade and our potential future with leverage against the Saudi Arabia. So one of the things that you may or may not know is that recently in the news, Jamal Khashoggi, the reporter who was assassinated by one of the major players and princes of Saudi Arabia, which was confirmed, was basically given a pardon by Western countries and being like, hey, we're not going to prosecute, we're not going to go after this guy. That's it, we're done. And Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro, who is, and the Unitary Platform, an opposition coalition, reached an agreement to implement a humanitarian program which would open, which was basically the leverage point in which the Western nations would be like, hey, we'll give you a lot of money for your oil, but you have to put these humanitarian programs in place. And they're like, okay. And so as a result, just recently, Chevron got the go-ahead to start drilling in the country that is, in terms of the crude oil supply in the world, is 13th. So they have a large crude oil supply. This would essentially make prices drop and give leverage to the U.S. with Saudi. Biden, while running, promised Saudi will pay for their crimes against Jamal Khashoggi, but recently granted immunity for the assassination. Does this mean U.S. can go after the Saudi prince? No, but any future relations will allow U.S. to drink from Venezuela's crude oil milkshake rather than fist bumping the oil-rich Middle Eastern nation. So up next, we have an interview with our own Gary Gillette. He's doing his own show called Music in Missoula, but he's also doing Tuba Christmas at the Southgate Mall sometime next week. So without further ado, here's the interview that I conducted with him, and when I come back, we're going to talk about some movies. Hey guys, I'm here with Gary Gillette. He is the band director who is going to be directing the Tuba Christmas at the mall.
At the mall,
Yep.
we're back. You know, to say things will be normal, how can 100 tubas be normal?
Yeah.
But things are, with the dispersal of the COVID, and we, for the last 2 years, we've been at the band shell outside at Bottom Park. Though there could be some sad people because there were a whole bunch of hardcores that came out. The first year it was snowing. It was real light. It was real pretty, but it was snowing during the gig. People would bring their hot chocolate and hang out and stand up and take in Tuba Christmas. But it just wasn't. We couldn't have as many folks. The first year I had to limit it to just 36 because of the COVID. So we're going to be able to reinstitute a rehearsal, which means that we can take youngsters and teach them the tunes, and we'll all stay warm, and everything will be in the mall.
And speaking of rehearsals and stuff like that, for people interested in joining Tuba Christmas, what time and where are you going to rehearse?
So we'll register at 3:30. Just show up. Or just go to tubachristmas.com, and you could register and bring your things with you, or just come to the mall, and we'll rehearse from 4 to 5:30, and then take a dinner break, and then grab our chairs and go down to the concourse. The concourse in front of Shields. Yep. That's what it's called, I guess. Big open area that will accommodate us and a crowd of folks that always come to the mall, either trapped there or family or intentionally.
Yeah, and it's at the top of the December, right? The first weekend in December.
The second Friday, December.
Gotcha.
Friday, December 9th.
Okay.
And I've tried to keep it there so I don't bump up against. There's an event that happens in Kalispell, one in Great Falls, and one in Spokane, and we have tuba geeks that travel around regionally and do multiple tuba events. And what it is masked. It just sounds bad to say. It's a bunch of tubas, all playing 4-part Christmas carols together. And it sounds like a scary ordeal, but the numbers of tubas don't. The more tubas you get together, the happier the sound is. The happier the more you get together, the happier you'll be. It works for tubas, and it doesn't get louder. It just gets like more enveloping.
Nice.
And the sounds bounce around the mall. I'm anxious to see how the acoustics are in the Shields concourse. There's a lot of hard surfaces, so I'm sure people will hear us when they come in the front entrance and go, there's tubas here somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, you guys will get to find that over at the mall. Yeah, for sure.
And let's see, it's Friday, December day. We perform. So we'll play for a half hour. Then I encourage people to go out and buy something.
Yeah.
And then come back, and then we'll play another half-hour set.
Nice.
Of tuba.
Yeah, of course, some great music, live music from the Southgate Mall here
Yeah.
in Missoula, Montana.
Hot day.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a party. Be fun to be warm again. It was real nice of Draftworks to lend me those patio heaters, but it was a hassle getting them across town without dropping them out of the back of a pickup truck.
And this is all community organized and everything.
Yeah. And the city band kind of backs up the event anymore. That's where I put
And nice palate cleanser
Facebook.
during the winter for those who just play in the summer.
Yep.
No.
You got it, buddy. Merry tuba. There. Take that. Merry tuba Christmas.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're here to talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. Kicking things off, let me move over here to be on camera while I trash these movies. It's time for Pre-Critic, where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my prejudgment of movies. Imagine if Die Hard was an actual Christmas movie with Santa in the John McClane role. Enjoy a home invasion movie about a rich family who is held hostage on Christmas of all days by a band of mercenaries. Get What's Coming to Them by Santa Claus. This movie is a gimmick from a bunch of people who stole the ideas from John Wick, the actual John Wick people. Santa turns the tables on a bunch of bad guys while making sure he delivers toys for Christmas. That's basically what you can expect, especially with plenty of Yuletide puns sprinkled like a fine powder. And if it's rated R, Santa might be doing a little more Christmas cheer than folks expect from it. Up next, we got enjoy yet another one of those movies about a slave during the Civil War era and how bad white people are and how the black man struggles to get his freedom. Also, the movie is in black and white, which means the cinematography is artsy. Enjoy Will Smith Oscar bait his way into yet another Oscar award he cannot personally attend because of Chris Rock. Anyways, this movie basically kind of shows his journey through freedom. Savage Salvation, small town justice by a man who got hooked on opioids, which resulted in the death of his wife, but cannot blame Big Pharma, so they decide to have bad guys have a twiddling mustache or, a whole drug ring, drug dealers and all that stuff. We have Robert De Niro take on the role of I'm getting too old for this police chief on the verge of retirement that will lead to his death, but still has to get this vigilante and uncover the bad guy's drug ring in the process. Hell of a way to go. He's basically become the new Bruce Willis after Bruce Willis retired. Sorry, Bruce Willis. Up next, we have a brand new Dubbin Stuff for you guys, and this is a Christmas-themed one. So this is from Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, and yes, I have done this before.
I'm glad we don't let Rudolph play reindeer games.
You violated hate speech. Prepare to be canceled.
Oh no! Santa, run!
Close-mindedness and bigotry is on fleek in here.
Hey, get your lawyer. I'm Trey.
That's right.
Get loose, Santa. I got this.
No!
Big hug.
Be careful! Please stop it! I must fight for what's programmed is right.
Well, then you should probably put him down. That's nice.
As you command.
Ooh, interesting.
You
That's
think
really cool.
interesting?
He complimented the robot. That fatal flaw in the design. I think we're gonna have to go in there and ruin Christmas ourselves. I like being allegories for Cold War Russia. I guess we have to do it ourselves. Come on, let's go in there.
And then I was like, punchline.
We hate to interrupt mid-laugh, but We're here to capture you, Santa.
Oh, Santa not here. My name is, Chris.
That mustache looks really fake on you.
You quiet.
And another thing, hey, what did that for?
My slave labor, I mean elves.
Ha! This is what happens when you give power to a lot of weak-minded people on Twitter.
Oh. Oh. I really like these elves. They were really... Well... Oh, well, I guess they're okay.
No more Christmas, you hear?
Yeah, move it.
Oh, you know what? This is kind of a net positive. Interesting.
Santa, I heard something. Oh, Santa, it looks like you have some guests here. We have to get to doing Christmas. Come on, everyone, stop moving. You elves get to work.
Jeez, what'd you do that for? You saw that, Captain. She was pointing a finger. She was gonna shoot me. I had no choice after all. Better her than us.
Well, Carol, looks like I can have all the cookies I want. No more diet for Santa. I know we've done this before, but I'm gonna teach these Martians how to enjoy Christmas.
Alright, Santa, my mustache is falling off.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll go with you guys. So, are there any cookies on Mars?
No!
Well, this is awkward.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some things that are happening with the city of Missoula. But before we get into the youth abuse of marijuana, we're going to talk about a lot of things that are helping the city of Missoula, and that has to do with the home program for loan forgiveness. So home program was implemented many years ago, and part of this was to give additional loans on top of your housing mortgage loan. And part of this is that the subsidized federal loan that happened between 2005 and 2012 are qualified to be forgiven. Sandra Fasica, who's been speaking against a lot of misuse of taxpayers' money, is in support of this.
So it turns out the federal tax dollars, so your federal taxpayer dollars that you pay to the federal government, went to a grant that then went to the city and the county of Missoula, which then went to home buyer assistance programs. So if the folks that repay these loans, it would go back to the grant, which would then go back to the city and county, which would then go back to more home buyer assistance programs. Apparently, these loans are so old that it'll cost taxpayer dollars. Oh, it'll cost more taxpayer dollars to keep track of administrative costs and keeping track of these loans than it would be to just forgive these loans. And since I am in the business of protecting your taxpayer dollars, I think that forgiving these loans, although I personally believe if you take out a loan, you should repay it, but I believe that this would be better for the taxpayers in the long run, so I will be supporting it tonight.
Okay, that was just one of many things that this organization does. This wasn't just about home, but a series of other grants the city uses to develop, and then they wanted to set a public hearing to put up a bunch of other grants like Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. These are usually used to match funds for bolster development and leverage affordable housing. Developmental Services have received a request of the IMEG Group on behalf of the Evergreen Housing Solution LLC for a 260-lot major subdivision annex of 71 acres located west of Flynn Lane. So this is a big chunk of land, and this is crazy because there's a lot of properties. The Mullen area project is a huge major project that's in the basically kind of almost wrapping up. I'm not sure exactly where they're at. It kind of seems like there's a lot of construction there, but if you actually go past that area, despite the roundabouts, you have a lot of those general areas and stuff like that. But the intention was always clear that the city was going to annex this area, because if you get a home that is hooked up to the city water or sewer, there is something in the contract when buying a house that you waive the right to petition. So this is kind of like a little bit of information right there. So I'm dumping a lot of information before I get to the main topic, but one of the things that they're talking about is Union Apartments is during a public hearing that they have meant for affordable housing behind the Best Buy, and a public hearing will have these affordable let me restate that. And so the public hearing for today, for Monday's meeting, will have this to remain affordable for Missoulians, making 60% the median income for the next 46 years. And this whole deal is the Union Apartments is going to be part of renovation, and Devco, the company working on redeveloping the site. A rep spoke about the folks having to leave during the rehabilitation process and the smooth transition back and forth.
So that is dependent on the full construction scope, which we are determining right now. If we end up doing a lot of unit interior work, then residents will receive a full relocation completely paid for. And we work with a consultant called OPC who puts together a full schedule, a full budget, a full plan, and then we end up paying for that as the developer. So I've reached out to OPC personally to try to understand what would be needed. With the current scope as it stands, there isn't too much, but that's subject to change. And I'm happy to keep you all updated on where we land there.
Okay. So in many cases, you know, one of the major things is that when they're building affordable housing and just doing that kind of thing, a lot of times they have to uproot the current residents that are there. But in this case, they're able to keep a lot of the residents there. Perhaps they can use this model to help development in the future process when people are trying to find a place to live. So this meeting is bolstering of programs that goes into finding affordable housing, because winter is usually all the planning with the budget in place, with some funds being added to free up the matching of grants. And as you were, sorry about that, I have a stutter, but as you may or may not know, the City of Missoula is going on their second year of the Affordable Housing Trust. And the Affordable Housing Trust was put into place to have money put aside to bolster development and affordable housing programs in place. And one of the things that have these program, which is actually community run, is that last month they awarded $80,000 to United Way for the centralized housing solution. So what this is actually I'm going to talk a little bit more about this after Emily Harris-Shear, Community Planning and Housing, talks about the Affordable Housing Trust a little bit more.
There was a really robust discussion from the committee members about whether that was the right approach for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or whether they should really focus investments on development. And ultimately, the discussion kind of led back to a need to be doing both and to be able to meet the systemic realities of this meeting urgent need now, while also investing in development and preservation when possible. And there was also a curiosity about the sustainability and future funding needs, and staff provided guidance on that as well, that you know, this is a project that will likely need ongoing investment, and that's something that we expect and anticipate from projects that are funded under the Consumer Housing Services umbrella, that those are ongoing programs that meet community need. And so unlike a development project where may need 1 or 2 rounds of funding, we expect to see programs like the Centralized Housing Solutions Fund and some of the other consumer housing needs programs that we fund come back for funding in additional years. And so that's not necessarily seen as a drawback.
So in many ways, the city has advocated for like more affordable housing, building an infrastructure that can help a lot of long-term solution problems. But Emily was a proponent of the community development, but the committee wanted to support the people sooner rather than later. Money going just for the rent is not an investment, and I see that. But if you think about it in terms of investing in people rather than places, maybe we can find a better way in the long run. So the City of Missoula is doing what is called an urgency ordinance, which it would free up some of the longer permitting process to reflect a growing demand for affordable housing and housing in general. So like this actually also harkens back to the centralized housing solution, is that, you know, you have all these people who are struggling just to pay their rent. They can't, they don't have the ability to bolster up and actually save up some money, or even have the kind of time in which they could actually spend with their family. And, you know, rather than going off on a tangent like of this kind of thing, I'm going to jump over to Jen Gross, the Community Planning and Innovation, spoke out about the building trends over the last 6 months, and this is what she had to say.
The city saw 2,396 building permits issued. 480 of those were for dwelling units. So we saw the same amount of permits in the last half of a year as we saw in the entire year for both 2019 and 2020. And again, this year, the majority of residential permits were for multi-dwelling units. Each of these building permits must be reviewed by staff, but with time spent on other types of reviews, especially those mandated by state law, such as subdivisions, building permit review is sometimes necessarily put to the side, and this slows the process even further.
Okay, and so yeah, one of the many solutions they moved forward on this was the ability to look into how they can use the ability of ADUs, aka granted apartments and townhouse exemption development, were used as a model to speed along development and have access across and have speed in terms of development across the board. So they want to be able to utilize some of those things in terms of the permitting process, and just to because with the whole idea of Missoula is having a boom in population, doesn't seem to be slowing down, and development should reflect that. And that's the point of this urgency ordinance. They want to help free up some of these problems. And this was an internal review and update to help staff help you in the permitting process. So that's kind of what some of the things here and there. But one of the things that also kind of like came out of nowhere that I kind of just saw, but I'm not going to show any clips for this one because this is kind of like one of the many things is that after the public hearings, we the health department. Okay, hold on a second. This is kind of big news within the city of Missoula because they're going to be getting $150,000 a year based on the opioid crisis that happened in the state of Montana. So a lot of states that had to deal with opioid crisis, a lot of these drug addictions that are from prescription drug abuse. So a lawsuit went into effect, and it came out to the state of Montana will be receiving $450 million in which Missoula will be getting a piece of that pie of an equivalent of $150,000 a year for 18 years, and for the first year they'll get the $223,000 for the Johnson & Johnson corporation, which is the one that the suit was filed against. And so this is a very interesting kind of deal because this money could be used to go into a lot of different programs, a lot of different things in the city of Missoula. Since the city of Missoula lost their levy for the crisis intervention levy, that also has to do with homelessness, but also the mobile crisis support team. Perhaps this could be used for this as well. They haven't said what this money would be used for. They just said that they will be receiving this money. So this is a good chunk of money that will be happening, that will be given to the city of Missoula for the next 18 years. And since this was had to do with a lot of substance abuse problems as a result of this lawsuit, this could be possibly used for this kind of mental health crisis and drug intervention kind of policies. So who knows? It's $150,000 surplus that the city will be using. And so if you have any ideas and you want to speak out to the city of Missoula, you can contact your ward representative and say what you can use this money for. So Amber Sherrill, City Council, speaks on this a little bit more.
If you have read or followed any of the opioid epidemic information and just how brutal it has been in this country, this is not nearly enough money, but it is a start, and I'm happy that we're going to have something, and I will look forward to what comes forward and how we spend this money. I really wish it were more. But it's something, so I'm happy to support it.
Okay. So that was Amber Sherrill from the City Council talking a little bit more about that. And now we're going to talk about the main topic that I was teasing at the beginning of the show, which was the youth using marijuana. It isn't just about the marijuana, but it's also trending in terms of just alcohol abuse, cigarettes, vaping. There's a lot of the things that are affecting our youth in Missoula alone. And Missoula has the state of Montana beat in terms of the numbers. So during public safety and health, they dove into the increased youth use of cannabis, aka recreational weed. Getting alcohol was easy back in the day, and with recreational marijuana just as frequent and regular as liquor, it's getting more and more accessible for youth to get access to this as well. And they call this the downstream approach in terms of kids getting this kind of these substances in the first place. They have some older friends, maybe they were freshmen, they had some senior friends, and now they're seniors. It's always complicated, but it's also a case-by-case scenario. And I can't really give you advice on who your kids are friends with, and that's this kind of thing. But we're going to dive right into this, and we're going to talk about some of the numbers. And so Leah Fitch Brody, Health Department, through the Youth Drug Use Prevention, presented in the information and the growing trends in youth. Here is SUD.
Basically, what the group does is we address substance misuse through community collaboration and best practices to create a healthy local environment where youth can make informed decisions and thrive. So what that looks like is, we engage with youth, doing after school youth activities. We do conversations with parents and trainings with parents. We promote social emotional learning in school and evidence-based programming and encourage positive and healthy experiences and relationships.
And so, part of this is that they want to help mitigate the use among youth and encourage them as a better way. The 90s were about kids' drug awareness and promoted jail time over mitigating and putting up guardrails in prevention and mitigation. They're going to find a way. It's up to us, the community, to find a better way. Like I mentioned before, from opioids to fentanyl, trends uptick in the communities. This was a reaction to legalization and how this year has dealt with the large presence of cannabis in our community. Missoula has higher rates of cannabis, vaping, and drinking compared to the rest of the state. We'll talk about cannabis because that's the main topic of the youth that they're dealing with right now. So Leah talks about the harmful effects on youth if those who start smoking at an early age.
What we have seen from more than 20,000 studies related to harms associated with marijuana is that it is more harmful for youth. And what we're seeing with this is that we're seeing an increased risk for cannabis use disorder later in life, right? So more likely to develop a substance use disorder. More issues with motor vehicle crashes, cognitive impairment, poor school performance, lower levels of educational attainment, and poor mental health. Some of these can be long-term, some of these can be short-term, but ultimately it's also affected by the frequency of use as well as the amount of basically THC, the active ingredient. So. And then
and in many cases, in terms of the active ingredient, is that even after the fact that they do smoke and sometime later, they still have the effects of marijuana in their system. And in many cases, like even with alcohol, it goes through your system pretty quickly. And even like how they test for blood alcohol content, it usually within a couple days. But with the THC and high marijuana use, a lot of times it stays within some people's systems for as long as a week, 2 weeks tops before some of those effects go away. And even in some cases, if some kids smoke too much, they have a lot of adverse reactions that can last for months. So there's a lot of things, and there's but of course let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's one of the biggest things in Missoula. It has more than 52 active dispensaries in Missoula alone, and last year when all the dispensaries opened up for legalization, we had more dispensaries per capita in the whole entire United States. So whether they are 50 feet or 1,000 feet away from school, it's not about advertising. It's always about proximity and saturation. So Leah talks about the potency in today's THC.
Today's THC is different than it used to be, right? Back in 2000, the average potency was around 5%. In 2017, it rose to about 17%. And you also see the blue and the red lines. The blue line is just all marijuana, and then the red lines are concentrates. And so some of our concentrates are up to 99% THC, which is really high. And so youth in states that have legalized are using much more potent products because they're available, right?
And one of the big things that she also mentioned during this presentation is that, like alcohol, the potency is getting greater and greater, resulting in similar effects that alcohol brings, like hangovers, just restlessness and anxieties. And Montana has a cap of 35% in terms of just the plant itself, but it has 99% in terms of concentrates and vapes and edibles and vape products. And just coming from experience, don't mess with the concentrates. It's just across the board, their effects are delayed and can lead to overuse in one sitting. If it doesn't kill brain cells, then you must be using some special stuff. Colorado, the first to legalize this, has seen a 73% of youth who use drugs say that they've had a problem with marijuana. So maybe marijuana is not necessarily the problem, but it's necessarily the youth in terms of overuse and getting what they need. So Leah talks about the trends in the neighborhoods and that have large densities of dispensaries in accordance with trends in, I guess, Justice Department. So here is Leah Fitch talking a little bit more about that.
If you look at where there is a higher number of alcohol outlets, we know that there is a higher level of youth who use, as well as a higher level of violence in that area. Interesting. And so what we're seeing in other places that have legalized, they are seeing that there's a higher rate of youth use if a child lives within 5 miles of a dispensary.
So regardless of the, like I said, regardless of the 500,000 feet away from a school, you know, like we have, you know, transportation that anyone can get around anywhere and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's a lot of things being put in place, mind you, in terms of like curbing a lot of the youth use and preventing any youths from actually buying from these dispensaries as well. So, you know, in terms of violence, they kind of went back and walked this back a little bit more. And the areas was anecdotal, and many of the places that have these higher concentrations of marijuana stores also have liquor stores as well. So there's always the mixed bag of that stuff. So let's kind of like curve that idea of violence out of there as well. So if we actually follow the national standards of the dispensary based on our population, we should only actually have 8, respectfully, which is based on 1 dispensary per 15,000 people. So Bozeman, however, tried to cap the amount and were sued in the process, resulting in dispensaries' right to operate. So it's the interesting kind of deal because, you know, we have so many liquor stores that we become so numb to the amount of them. So if you look around, you drive around town, you can see that there's just as many liquor stores as the marijuana stores. The only reason why we see marijuana stores in the first place is the fact that they're new. And so they're not become to the normalization of it, to the idea is like you see the buildings is like, oh, okay, whatever. So in the end, Missoula could not prevent the current 52 dispensaries from operating because in terms of the legalization and also being grandfathered in, but if they fail, but if those businesses fail on those sites, they could be denied future use depending on how Missoula could approach it. Like Billings, Montana, which in terms of Billings, Montana, they keep it county and not within the city. So, and of course, they're going through some issues over in Billings as well to move it forward, to have it within the city of Billings as well. So Dr. Chelsea Wagner speaks about the accessibility and packaging of some of these products, and this is what she had to say.
From a medical perspective and from a national perspective, those are some of the really important things, along with the sort of marketing access issues that we're seeing in our storefront level behaviors. So I guess I don't have an answer for you, but I think it's a super important question to delineate where is it that we have the capacity to pay attention to those types of things in our own communities, and where do we have the ability to monitor and regulate those types of things? Because it does seem like the intention built into the regulations that we already have would say we're on the right path to be looking at and answering those.
Okay, so of course this is all informational only, and this is all based on statistics because we're in the first year of we're relatively within the first year of legalization of marijuana, and we're looking at all these trends and looking forward with this. But edibles are basically made to taste good and added as a drug delivery system, and with concentrates with the high level of THC, the effects are even more potent. And you know, when you have things like candy that can get you high, you run the risk of having some increased numbers of hospital visits. So Gwen Jones, City Council, reacts to this presentation and gives her 2 cents.
I mean, 220 kids hospitalized in the emergency room, a lot of them little kids, a lot of them teenagers who, being a teenager is hard enough in this era without this kind of complication. So I just want to emphasize this, and I'm putting a big exclamation point on it right now for you. Thanks.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things happening and a lot of things that need to be done. And Amber Sherrill, City Council, harkens back to the vaping issue with being able to sneak the drug and not knowing that the kids are taking them.
The delivery mechanism is created in a way to hide it from parents is another thing that I think that we need to just look at really seriously. They're good at this. They know how to do it. We had a big fight to get rid of Joe Camel. And I will say again, I'm happy that the war on drugs wasn't working and there was a lot of inequities in it. But one of the things about legalizing it is the ability to put sideboards on it and to make it safe. And so I think we should take this responsibility really seriously as a city and what we're able to do.
Yeah. So for those of you who like the old natural approach of cannabis use, it seems to be a lot more safe than going through the more of the concentrate and the vaping. And then you have, you know, the additive problem of when we had the vape problem, in which, you know, you'd have like bubble gum, you had blueberry, you had all these flavors in terms of vaping. So it made it real easy just for kids to be like, oh, you know, it tastes like candy, blah, blah, blah. And then you actually have edibles, which are meant to taste good and also get you high. And then you have, it's like it's not, that's the problem. See, that's the issue, is like, you know, you're making concentrates that are just way too potent for a lot of people to handle. Even like the seasoned smokers out there, a lot of these things are like face melting highs and just kind of like intense ups and just all that kind of stuff. And if anything, the biggest problem that marijuana presents to a lot of the youth is just giving them lack of motivation. So, you know, the health department wants to avoid enforcement and wants to mitigate problems and again educate through the schools. But the wheels are turning on having solutions to the concentrates on their appeal and the flavor. Other meetings during the city council were talking about reappointments, rezoning updates, and other things like that, but I really wanted to devote a lot of time to this particular issue. Missoula is going through an interesting time and with legalization, and I think that in many ways that Missoula is definitely getting carried away, especially in our youth culture in terms of cannabis use. Because when you normalize something and then everyone's just like, well, you know, you do it, like, you know, like your parents, you know, maybe are smokers as well, and it's like, oh, where do we draw the line at this point? It's like, do we have to lock up your marijuana, lock up, you know, like you have liquor cabinets. Perhaps at some point you should really think about mitigating and educating your kids about, like, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing this. This isn't cool. I don't know. There's a lot of steps that can be done, but at the same time, like, one thing, even from my own personal experience, is that concentrates are crazy, and they also have a fuse that you just don't know when they're just going to go off. And you could take an edible and be like, hey, I don't really feel anything. Then you take another one, boom, and then like it just gets worse and worse. So you got to think about it in terms of that. And the delivery mechanism is a very important process in the future of recreational marijuana. So that was everything that you need to know about this particular meeting. If you want to learn more about this meeting, you can go to ci.missoula.mt.us. It is a wonderful website in which it talks a lot about agenda items and permitting and even how you get involved with your local government as well. Go to ci.missoula.mt.us. All right, we're going to jump right into your First Friday. First Friday is an event that is held here in the city of Missoula where we highlight and hearken on the arts in the downtown and local Missoula area about the arts. And we're kicking things off with the Clay Studio of Missoula. So they're doing a holiday sale, part of kicking things off for the holiday season, featuring works from current artists and past Clay Studio residents, local and national artists. Our December sale is just a place to take care of your holiday shopping, whether you're looking for a new mug for your morning coffee or a vase for a bouquet of flowers or sculptures to decorate your home. The Clay Studio will be offering varieties of exceptional ceramic art, special extended holiday gallery hours, make shopping at the Clay Studio easier, all that kind of stuff. And their big event is from 5 to 8 p.m. All First Friday events are from 5 to 8 p.m. They also have open hours you can check out on their website as well. Another sale is happening is actually this is a family of photos. So if you're interested in doing a Christmas holiday photos, the Pure West Christie's International Real Estate is doing free family portraits and artwork by Josh Johnson and Shelby Shively, hosted and sponsored by Kelly Rigg of Pure West Real Estate. So this is going to be a Christmas party, and this happens starting at 5 p.m. as well. And they're going to have some cookies, goodies, gift baskets, and more, and it's all free. So Artist Shop is doing Fauna, Fun, and Folly, featuring Sarah Angst. This artist shop, Bozeman artist Sarah Angst will feature 21 brand new hand-painted lino cuts in the Missoula Artist Shop during the month of December and January. This show combines 3 unique series of imagery that Angst has been wanting to produce for some time, creating an eclectic mix of Montana wildlife, retro memorabilia, and the silliness that results when you combine the two. So as you can see here, you can see just one example of their arts. Although this isn't necessarily art, I would say that nature itself, in terms of seeing the universe and everything like that, is art enough. At the University of Montana, they're doing a planetarium show featuring exploring Neptune and Uranus, our solar system's ice giants, with Mark Reiser. Shows first Fridays at 5:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. for the months of October, November, and December. Then we have the Montana Natural History Center is doing their first Friday holiday pop-up. The Montana Natural History Center is pleased to announce the holiday pop-up. The first Friday open house event will provide an opportunity to connect with fellow nature lovers while doing some holiday shopping, enjoy light refreshments, and after-hour museum access while you pursue the work of several talented local artists. And the local artists include Kelly Van Nopen, Valley House Woodworking, and their hand-carving woodwork has long been favorited by the organization, from spoons to bowls to cutting boards to combs. Valley House Woodworking features one-of-a-kind wood pieces that make thoughtful and unique gifts. So this is all about, arts and crafts and everything like that, and it's a wonderful opportunity to buy arts. But then this weekend as well, we're going to be talking a lot about arts and crafts fairs. So Zach is doing a bunch of art installations. This is just one of their many events as well. I'm on camera, so it's actually reversed rather than how you would see a mirror. So Zach and Friday holiday art show opening. Not just this, but many more. All past and present staff, board members, volunteers, studio holders, instructors, students. Zach Geller artist visits and Zach collaborators were invited to submit to Zach and Friends 2022 group art show. And Missoula Events has a series of events just featuring the Zach. So they have a lot of different fun things happening for your first Friday, and you guys can check it out. All these events and more starting at 5 p.m. And those are the ones that published, and they also have a bunch of more First Friday events as well that I didn't cover just because they didn't have like an image that I can show for you guys. So we're about towards the end of the show. Let's talk about many of the things that are happening in the city of Missoula and here at the public library. If you're interested in doing some gift wrapping, Makerspace here at the public library is having a gift wrapping station. So they have wrapping paper provided. You can just come in during the Makerspace open hours. You can find out by going to the Missoula's library's website for open hours as well. And so their open hours are from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. Explore Makerspace, learn about its resources, and make a quick craft. They have 3D printing and a laser woodcutter. It's great. It's wonderful. A lot of great things like that. Holiday tunes with the Missoula Youth Orchestra, starting at the Missoula Public Library from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. Join the Missoula Youth Orchestra for some beautiful holiday harmonies. Students will play for an hour at the library's fourth floor, continuing a long-standing tradition of musical excellence. The Missoula Youth Orchestra is focused on developing students as individuals as well as exceptional musicians. So check that out. I hope MCAT will be shooting this, but we'll see. But Missoula Food Bank meal distribution is every lot of different hours, a lot of different days, and there's a lot of opportunities to go there, learn about food, and get some cheap food as well. They also have a Missoula Public Library extension called Read Regime, a little about Empowered Place, which is at the Missoula Food Bank. They are hands-on learning center located at the Missoula Food Bank and Community Center dedicated to nourishing the bodies and minds of local children. And so this is a literacy and STEM programming and books from Missoula Public Library for children, young adults, and parents. Empowered Place offers enriching experiences free of charge to all Missoula families. Tiny Sales and Story Time are happening at the Missoula Public Library at 10:30 here on the second floor. Yarns and Watercolor is happening on the fourth floor at noon. And also hands-on science circuits and robotics, second floor of the library through Spectrum Discovery Center. Lego Club, second floor of the library is happening at 2:30 this afternoon. Great, wonderful things. And also, let's jump right into some crafts fair. There's a lot of crafts fair happening this weekend. Kicking things off this Friday is today actually, is the Little Red Truck Market's European Christmas Market. So you like those old vintage toys that you would actually see that Santa would actually have his elves handcraft and make. This is the best place to do it. It's called Little Red Truck's annual European-style Christmas market. Has been the historic Missoula County Fairs. So starting at 4 p.m., the two-story barn, plus the floriculture building and the home arts building at the historic plaza will be in full brim with the fabulous vintage handmade and gift vendors. They just installed some elevators for ADU accessibility in those buildings as well, so it's all access to everyone and everywhere. It's a beautiful building. They've done a lot of great updates to the Missoula Fairgrounds as well. So that's kind of like the things that are going to kick it off. I'm going to have a lot more events on Saturday, but for your Friday night music, you're going to have folk at the Cranky Sand Public House with the Benevolence, karaoke at the Jack Stallone, Harry Connick Jr.'s The Happy Elf is going to be at the MCT, based on an animated film written by Harry Connick Jr. And this hilarious and jazz-filled show is designed to become a new holiday classic. The Christmas Eve and Yule the elf wants nothing more than to be on Santa's sleigh team, but he is stuck checking the nice and naughty list. When he realizes the entire town of Boozville has 0 people on the nice list, Ebby uses his opportunity to make his way down the dreamy little town and bring some Christmas joy to the folks that live there. So it's going to be a fun play. It's going to be playing all winter long. At Monk's Bar, they're going to have some hip-hop Chev's Lives at Missoula. 'Tis the seasons for crafts and fair, and kicking things off for your Saturday is the Scandinavian Marketplace, Sons of Norway, Normandan Lodge. And so this one is actually located just kind of Highway 93, just past Fred's Appliances as you head towards Lolo. It's near the Axeman on that side of town. The Sons of Norway is homemade leaf, kurmka, rosetta, rose malling, Nordic knitting, hardanger, embroidery, and other Nordic crafts. So all those things I totally completely butchered is going to be there starting at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Speaking of other crafts fair, Big Sky High School is doing a crafts fair this weekend as well, starting at 9 a.m. at Big Sky High School. And this is going to be from 9 to 3. Free admission, lots of vendors and Christmas gifts available from local artists. Missoula Valley Winter Market is also at the Southgate Mall. Hey, if you missed the Farmers Market, Winter Market starts at inside the Southgate Mall, starting at 9 a.m. and goes until roughly about 1 p.m. Missoula Frenchtown PTA Crafts Fair at the Frenchtown High School, starting at 9 a.m. Community free sale, everything is free. Home Resource Community Room, Frostbite Festival and Holiday Bazaar. Swan Valley School in Condon, Montana. Enchanted Christmas Village. If you go to 9 Mountain Schoolhouse, they're going to be converting their school into a enchanted Christmas village. Parade of Lights, ornament making. So also Saturday is all about the Parade of Lights. And I can't talk too much about this, but there's a lot going on here. And so they're doing a reverse parade of lights in the downtown Missoula area. MCAT will be filming it. Tuba Santas will be there. A lot of different fun things, a lot of different vendors, a lot of folks will be parking their floats along Higgins Avenue, which people can walk down and see all those floats during the reverse parade of lights. And so if you're interested in contributing, they're doing a parade of lights drop and craft at the Missoula Public Library on Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. Celebrate the Parade of Lights and create light-themed decorations. Stella Null demo at Radius Gallery is Saturday, December 3rd from noon to 1 p.m. Is a beating demo with Stella Null. And you get to go check that out. It's at the Radius Gallery. And starting at 1 p.m. at the Missoula Public Library, if you want your kids to have photos with Santa, Santa Claus is coming to the Missoula Public Library not just to get a book, but to take some family photos with some Santa Claus at the Missoula Public Library from 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturday. Also from 1 to 3 p.m. is our Saturday drop-ins with the kids. Kids get to do stop animation with their toys, and then hopefully by the end of their Christmas time, they'll have some new Legos and toys that they want to stop animate and bring to life through the magic of video making. So Parade of Lights, like I said, is going to do a reverse Parade of Lights. The downtown lighting of the Christmas tree starts at 6 p.m. Missoula's going to be illuminating Missoula's downtown Christmas tree. It's right by the red X's at the end of Higgins Avenue, downtown Missoula. They light it up every year. One of the biggest trees. Still in the ground. They never have to cut one down every year. It's the one that stays there all year long. All right, so if you're interested in doing some bands on your Saturday night, Jam Band is going to be featured at Monk's called 710 Ashbury. Missoula Folklore Society is going to do a contra dance at the Missoula Senior Center. It's kind of like old folk. It's not necessarily line dancing, but it's close. Hammerhead Jack is going to be at the Old Post playing some blues music. Karaoke at Westside Lanes. And then DJ Chris Moon every Saturday at the Badlander. Yeah, there's a teddy bear tea party at the First Interstate Center Garden City Room. This time has come for share magic of Christmas with your children. The annual teddy bear tea party will be held through the holiday season. That's going to be on Sunday. Missoula Public Library is doing ugly shirt decorating party on Sundays at 1 p.m. on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library. And those are all your events that are happening. There's a lot of happening events, and it is the season of Crafts Fair. And I'll let you guys know when the Missoula Crafts Fair is going to happen. I believe it should be sometime next weekend. And so these are kind of the things where you get a lot of handmade stuff that you can give to your families. So without further ado, I'm going to show a nice short video by Josh Cook yet again. And then I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Rev.